tonight, one of the biggest changes to the Scottish legal system. Campaigners welcome plans to end the not proven verdict after hundreds of years.
For me, it was about what can I do to help improve other people's experiences through the system.
Also making the headlines, a warning cuts could be coming as the Scottish Government deals with the impact of inflation. And we look at how the tattoo industry is going green. I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. A rape survivor who has campaigned against the not proven verdict has told STV News that scrapping it will make the justice system better for victims in future trials.
Miss M is welcoming one of the biggest ever changes to the law in Scotland, but some defence lawyers are concerned it could lead to more miscarriages of justice. Here's our senior reporter, Gordon Cree.
Miss M was raped during Freshers' Week at St Andrews University 9 years ago. She won a civil case against her attacker, action she took after the case against him was found not proven at a criminal trial. For the last few years, she's fought for the verdict to be abolished, a fight she has now won.
I was quite emotional. I was at work at the time, and then there I was receiving this sort of news, sort of finding out about it. Yeah, it was a shock, and I think all these emotions of 4 years that I've been campaigning alongside Rape Crisis Scotland sort of coming to fruition at the end here. Just need to keep our fingers crossed now and hope it goes all the way.
The scrapping of not proven will be part of the Scottish Government's criminal justice bill.
Once I sort of got that closure from the civil case, I decided, what can I do that's going to help every rape victim in Scotland and not just myself? It's not about me, it's not about what happened and what Stephen Coxon did to me. For me, it was about what can I do to help improve other people's experiences through the system.
For centuries, criminal trials in Scottish courts have had 3 verdicts available: guilty, not guilty and not proven. Judges always tell juries there is no practical difference between the 2 acquittal verdicts, but there's long been concern there is little public understanding of that. Research has been carried out with mock juries looking at how the verdict was used.
So we saw that some jurors thought this was about sending a message to a complainer in a sexual offence case that they believed them but didn't think they could convict. Some jurors thought that it was about, say, they thought the accused was guilty but it wasn't proven. So there wasn't a consistent message from jurors as to exactly why not proven was being chosen.
This defence advocate is a supporter of not proven and says its removal would need other checks and balances, like ending convictions by a simple majority.
Well, at the very least, if the proposal is to withdraw the not proven verdict, they would have to move on to the English system, where they would require to convince 12 of the 15 jurors before any conviction could result.
Rape Crisis Scotland fear not proven verdicts are disproportionately used in sexual cases.
For quite a number of rape survivors we've supported, they feel it's a cop-out, that the jury just have not made a decision. And I do think, at least if the not proven verdict goes, there isn't this halfway verdict that juries can hide behind.
The legislation is due to be put before Parliament during the coming year. Cross-party support for the measure makes it almost certain to go ahead. Gordon Cree, STV News, Edinburgh.
The Prime Minister Liz Truss has confirmed she will set out her plans tomorrow to try to help people with soaring energy bills.
Live now to our Westminster correspondent Catherine Sampson. And Catherine, the new Prime Minister was facing questions in the Commons for the first time this afternoon.
That's right, and Liz Truss has a new cabinet too. They met this morning, they sat alongside her on the front bench. Now, she is, of course, under pressure from all sides to tackle the energy crisis. We now know there is not long at all to wait to hear her plan. The political row, the debate around this, is not over the fact that more support is needed or that more support is coming. It's about how that support is going to be paid for. setting off for her first Prime Minister's questions, Liz Truss is deluged with demands to do something on energy bills.
I, as Prime Minister, will take immediate action to help people with the cost of their energy bills, and I will be making an announcement to this House on that tomorrow.
Support's coming, but who will pay for it? Labour wants a windfall tax on oil and gas profits. Liz Truss has ruled this out.
There's nothing new about a Tory Prime Minister who, when asked who pays, says it's you, the working people of Britain.
Well, there's nothing new about a Labour leader who is calling for more tax rises.
The SNP also supports a windfall tax.
Making sure that those oil and gas producers pay their fair share from excess profits. Does the Prime Minister understand that her first act as Prime Minister will now define her? A trust tax that households and businesses will be paying for years to come.
Well, I'm not quite sure what the Right Honourable Gentleman's position is, because on one hand, he doesn't seem to want oil and gas extraction from the North Sea, and on the other hand, he wants them to pay more taxes. Why does he make up his mind?
Liz Truss has spent the last 24 hours appointing her top team. Alistair Jack, who was loyal to Boris Johnson, stays on as Scottish Secretary. Alistair Jack, what can we expect from Liz Truss's energy announcement tomorrow?
I've seen the details, and it's going to be fantastic support for not just domestic users, households, but also for businesses, and they need that certainty. And it's a package that will see us through, hopefully, to when we start to increase our own domestic production of gas.
The new Prime Minister says she won't be calling a snap general election. What she sets out tomorrow could come to define her premiership. Well, there's been a lot of talk today about the noticeable difference in style between Liz Truss and Boris Johnson. You know, in the Chamber she gives much shorter answers, much more direct answers too. But of course, when it comes to tomorrow's announcement, it is not the delivery that's going to matter to people at home, it is the content. Now, you heard there the Scottish Secretary says he's seen the plan, the Cabinet has signed it off. We expect Parliament to see it probably around late morning tomorrow, and MPs to get a chance to debate it after that.
Catherine in Westminster, thank you.
Well, while the new Prime Minister faced her first tests at Westminster, at Holyrood, the Scottish Government set out the challenges they face in the coming year. Well, we're joined by our political editor, Colin Mackay. So, Colin, what was the Deputy First Minister saying?
Well, what he says basically is bluntly, there's no money left. You've just been hearing from Catherine about the financial pressures facing the new Prime Minister. Well, it's exactly the same situation here at Holyrood. Now, quite often when there's financial pressures, we hear about the Finance Secretary delving down the back of the sofa in St Andrew's House to come up with some cash to solve some kind of crisis, just as they did with the council pay deal just last week. Well, John Swinney has been there, he's done that, there's nothing left, and the sofa's on eBay.
Difficult choices must be made. There is no unallocated cash. There is no reserve that has not been utilised. Every penny more on one policy is a penny less on another policy. I've therefore today written to the Finance Committee setting out around £500 million in reductions in planned spending and forecasting.
And there's some fairly big cuts among that. One of the biggest is £53 million coming out of employability scheme funding. That's because there's not been so much take-up on it after COVID because, well, we've got near full employment. There's a labour market shortage in Scotland and the UK, so they haven't needed that. Another £37 million coming from a similar background from concessionary fares because there hasn't been enough use of the buses since COVID either. But the Tories say that money's being wasted by the government.
Does the Deputy First Minister agree that if the Scottish Government hadn't wasted hundreds of millions on ferries that don't float, on the malicious prosecution of Rangers, and the delays with the Sick Kids Hospital, of course, other botched SNP projects, then he wouldn't be announcing the £560 million cuts he's announcing today?
Bluntly, no, because most of what Pam Gosler talked about was capital expenditure. And you can't use capital expenditure to pay folks' salaries. It's just not possible.
John Swinney says the public finances have never been under this much pressure before, and these cuts and savings that he's announcing today are really just to cover the cost mostly of that council pay deal, but there are bigger problems ahead than that as well. Firefighters, teachers, NHS staff, including nurses, are all balloting for strike action just now. They've all rejected their pay offers. John Swinney is hoping that this could help to influence those negotiations.
All right, Colin, live from Holyrood, thank you.
A groundbreaking trial hoping to make severe food allergies a thing of the past will be extended to Scotland. It explores if peanut and milk products taken under medical supervision can be used as a treatment for people with allergies.
It comes as the Duke of Rothley gets behind the work, which could be life-changing for many. Vanessa Taff reports.
11-year-old Isla is settling into her new school.
Remember, it's blue to sky, orange to thigh.
Having an egg and nut allergy means she has to carry an EpiPen. Knowing what's in her food is crucial.
If I don't read the ingredients on it and I just eat it, I have a possibility of having an anaphylaxis.
Words like may contain on food labels aren't much comfort either.
The may contains are probably our biggest problem at the moment, and I think that is probably one of the reasons why it's getting more and more difficult to eat out. We're finding more and more at the moment that we are faced with signing a legal disclaimer before we eat in that restaurant, because they think that that's a good way of meaning they don't have to,
These parents have campaigned for changes to food labelling. Their 15-year-old daughter died from an allergic reaction to a takeaway baguette in 2016. Legislation now known as Natasha's Law requires all ingredients to be listed on packaging.
There's still a lot more to do for people to actually feel safe and to be safe. And so, the research side is something that we're going to continue to pursue until we can actually, in our minds and actually in the minds of the scientists, until we can actually end it.
Their campaign has the backing of Prince Charles. He's met scientists working on a groundbreaking trial which is coming to Scotland.
There's so many new things that are being developed and new ideas that have shown that they should work. And I think we certainly have to bet on some of these issues because there's always lots to think about. But I am very positive.
For many, like Isla, it could be a life-changing breakthrough. Vanessa Taff, STV News.
Now, a Scottish cricketer whose allegations led to the sport's governing body being branded institutionally racist says not enough is being done to tackle the problem.
Majid Haq says action must happen now to ensure racism is eradicated in sport. He was among a number of campaigners taking part in a demonstration outside the Scottish Parliament, as Vanessa Kennedy reports.
Racism within sport is something these campaigners are determined to bring to an end.
We all want to be able to be part of sport and not have to worry about racism and not have to worry about the colour of our skin.
This demonstration comes after a report was published last month which showed Cricket Scotland to be institutionally racist, with 448 examples to prove it.
It's sad for me and Qasim. Obviously we were leading the investigation, but it's had a big impact on our lives and also just our mental health and how we are as people. We want to see action right now.
Following the report which showed so many examples of institutional racism within Scottish cricket, MSPs will debate how best to eradicate racism across all sports and discuss what lessons must be learned.
I would like to see the governing bodies of all the different sports having a good look at the makeup of their boards and to make sure that they are diverse. I would also like to see them consulting different voices, especially from ethnic minorities, people of colour in sports, to make sure that their needs are taken care of and barriers are removed.
The people here are hopeful that by discussing this issue at length, practical steps will be taken to ensure everyone can enjoy sport without racism. Vanessa Kennedy, STV News, Edinburgh.
Other stories across Scotland. Social care staff and care home visitors are no longer advised to wear face masks at all times. The requirement has been lifted after a sharp drop in coronavirus infections. In Scotland last week, 1 in 55 people had COVID.
Police have confirmed a body found in Northumberland at the weekend is that of retired teacher Peter Caution. The 75-year-old from Edinburgh was last seen on the 11th of August. 2 men have already been charged with his murder.
The SNP will be able to enter a submission as part of the Independence Bill case at the Supreme Court. The party has been told their input must be limited to 20 pages and cannot repeat arguments put forward by the Lord Advocate. The case will be heard in October.
And a woman who can smell Parkinson's has helped scientists develop a test to detect the disease earlier. Joy Milne from Perth noticed a change in her husband's smell 12 years before he was diagnosed with the illness. She's now worked with experts from Manchester University who've created a swab test that can identify the disease in around 3 minutes.
I actually diagnosed somebody that was in the control group 8 months before they were diagnosed. It is not diagnosed until 50% of damage is done. It is then irreversible. So we are hoping that if it was diagnosed perhaps before the 34-35%, there is a very good possibility regeneration could happen.
Members of the cycling community gathered in Dunfermline today to pay their respects to Rob Wardell, the Scottish mountain biking champion who died suddenly last month.
The 37-year-old suffered a suspected cardiac arrest while at home with his partner, Olympic champion Katie Archibald. Indigo Stafford reports.
They pedalled from all over Scotland to be here. Today, dozens of cyclists joined the funeral processions of mountain biking star Rob Wardell.
So this feels like a really fitting way to arrive at the crematorium to mark the life of a guy who just meant so much to all of us.
Rob's going to be a huge miss to the Scottish cycling fraternity. He's a well-liked guy and he's just always been around, so he's going to be a huge miss.
Very nice laddie, lovely person, always helpful to anybody.
Rob had just won the Scottish Championships and hours before his untimely death, he appeared on BBC Scotland's The Nine.
Still felt confident that I'd be able to catch the leaders and win, so yeah.
His partner, Olympic cyclist Katie Archibald, had tried to resuscitate him after he suffered a cardiac arrest while they were lying in bed. At his funeral, she paid an emotional tribute to him, saying she told him she loved him every day. She added, "In some ways it's a comfort that Rob knew how much I loved him." Competing for Scotland in the Commonwealth Games and setting the fastest known record for completing the West Highland Way are just some of Rob's remarkable achievements. And it's clear that through the lives he touched, his legacy will live on. Indigo Stafford, STV News, Dunfermline.
A UK-first project to use drones to speed up the delivery of medical supplies and samples could get underway next year. Trial flights will start in Glasgow early next year. It's hoped the project could slash waiting times and improve patient care in remote and hard-to-reach areas across the country. Caroline Lewis reports.
It's hoped taking to the skies will cut waiting times and carbon emissions. And it could be a reality very soon, as Scotland could pioneer the UK's first medical drone delivery system and revolutionise healthcare across the country.
The movement of medication, the movement of blood samples, the movement of a defibrillator, for example, could potentially be life-saving. It's not necessarily testing about the viability about drones, because we know drones work, but it's about introducing them into a complex healthcare system.
Just how the project will work is still under review, but trial flights for the £10 million scheme will begin in Glasgow early next year, with a lot of work to be done on the ground as well as in the air.
We've got to make sure that when these drones are taking off and landing, there's not any risk to the public or the people that are using the medical products that are being delivered. So we need to look at ways of ensuring that the housing can keep people safe, a safe distance. But also when the drone lands, we don't want people necessarily tampering with the drone that shouldn't be tampering with the drones.
It's hoped it will then be rolled out across the country, making deliveries more efficient and improve care in hard-to-reach areas.
I think really the main challenge is to try and just understanding the scale of it. So we're working with all of the NHS health boards. We understand it's quite a tall order and challenge that we've given ourselves, but it has to be because the gains are so great.
The project hopes to be fully fledged by July 2024 and bring a different way to deliver healthcare. Caroline Lewis, STV News.
Philip is here and the winds are coming.
Hello, good evening. Well, over the next couple of days, our weather's still being dominated by this large area of low pressure, keeping things fairly unsettled and changeable. Come Saturday, though, things do turn a little bit more settled, so a brief respite. Then we need to take a look out to the Atlantic. We've got ex-Hurricane Danielle approaching, and that will bring with it further changeable conditions as we head into the start of next week. Let's take a look at what's in store over the next couple of days, though. Here is the forecast.
Watch out for a sudden temperature drop. TUI Blue Hotels sponsor STV Weather.
Well, as we head through the rest of this evening and overnight, to begin with, there are still one or two showers working their way north and westwards. Through the early evening, though, those are starting to ease, and for many, it will be turning dry. We've got light winds and clear spells, so that's allowing some mist and fog patches to form. But then, through the early hours of tomorrow morning, there is still the risk of one or two isolated showers just feeding through. Temperature-wise, for most places, sitting between 13 and 15 degrees Celsius. In some rural areas, though, we could get down to single figures. Now, looking ahead to tomorrow, it's a similar picture to what we've seen through the course of today, a mixture of sunshine and scattered showers. A relatively dry start to the day for many central and southern areas, but we will start to see these showers moving in. They're very slow moving. Some of those could band together to create longer, more persistent spells of rain. Like the past couple of days, could hear the odd rumble of thunder and see some hail in the mix. But between the widespread showers, we will see some drier, brighter spells. And in the best of the brightness, it will be feeling warm once again, with highs of possibly 19 or 20 degrees Celsius, where we do see some thicker cloud reaching highs of around 15 or 16. Looking ahead to Friday now, we've got an occluded front working its way south and eastwards, so the driest conditions will be further west. Still a lot of cloud around though, and it will still be feeling quite muggy with highs of 19. Bye-bye.
TUI Blue Hotels sponsor STV Weather.
And finally, just how green is your tattoo? And we don't mean the colour. The tattoo industry is one of the latest looking at becoming more eco-friendly.
From biodegradable stencils to paper ink cups, Laura Piper has been finding out about the challenges of going green.
At this tattoo parlour in Edinburgh, artists have been choosing a greener palette, swapping tools of their industry for eco-friendly options.
All of our inks are vegan, same with our stencil paper or stencil stuff which you need to use to put the actual stencil onto the skin.
Tattoo inks in Scotland are now mostly vegan instead of the animal products used in the past. The sticking points are items like plastic ink cups or cling wrap.
At the moment you can buy eco-friendly ones. However, the cost is a lot more, obviously, than other ones. So, for example, we could get 200 paper ink cups for the price of 1,000 plastic ones. It would be great to be more eco-friendly, but the biggest barrier for us is that it's just not cost-effective at all for a small family-run business.
If costs come down, greener options can follow, and public feeling is that greener is better.
Hold my arm. Okay, yes, yeah. Okay, I've got you. Good, I've got this little dinosaur here, Ankylosaurus. Vegan is quite important, 100%. Always looking for ways to be eco-friendly.
It's our children and grandchildren and their grandchildren that we're leaving behind. That's the legacy, isn't it? It's got to be eco-friendly.
You've got to think everything that's going to help the environment and not ruin it.
Tribe Tattoo have already been experimenting. They've even set up an animal sanctuary as part of their business plan.
Where we can, we're starting to tinker with the edges a little bit, see if we can use maybe biodegradable barriers and bin bags and dressings and things like that. It's just time to give something back to how we feel the future should look, which is a more sustainable Scotland, a more kind Scotland, maybe something that places ethics over profit a little bit more.
A Scotland which these artists say has a chance of making greener and brighter choices for the long-term future of our planet. Laura Piper, STV News.
Oh, come on, John, show us your sleeve tattoo.
Too much of a wimp to get that done, believe me. That's it from all of us. Thanks for watching. Good night.
Good night.